The endgame of the Fast and Furious franchise is coming. Can Dom and his family survive? Let's ride. Almost as soon as F9 The Fast Saga unspooled in theaters in 2021, fans wanted to know what's next. And more importantly, they wanted to know when the follow-up and 10th installment in the Fast and Furious franchise would arrive in theaters. Entertainment Weekly reported in August 2021 that the still tentatively titled Fast and Furious 10 would start filming in January 2022, in advance of a release date of April 7, 2023. A few months later, Universal changed course and pushed back the release of the film. Now officially known as Fast 10, the film's release date was officially changed to May 19, 2023. According to the plot summary on the film's official website, Fast X is the beginning of the endgame for the franchise. Dominic Toretto and his family stared down what's perhaps their most dangerous endeavor yet. Back in Fast 5, Dom and company took down drug kingpin Hernan Reyes. 12 years have passed, and his revenge-minded son who witnessed his father's end has spent the entire period devising an elaborate and probably fatal revenge plot. Surviving and fighting back will take the huge and ever-expanding crew around the world, from Rome to Los Angeles to Portugal, and even Antarctica. As this movie is supposed to start to wrap up the series, plenty of long unseen characters, heroic and villainous, are likely to return to take sides in the developing war. And it seems that not every character will make it out of Fast 10 alive.
One of us might not come back from this, but we have to fight.
Director Louis Leterrier told Empire, "There's a war brewing, it's coming to an end, and it is a race to the finish. There will be some tremendous casualties." He also added that the movie promises to be so exciting that it's suggested in the title. He pronounces Fast X as Fast 10, like fasten your seatbelts. Family is extremely and repeatedly important to the Fast and Furious franchise, so expect plenty of familiar faces to return to the series when it arrives in theaters in May 2023. Among the returning cast members are Vin Diesel as Dominic Toretto, Jordana Brewster as Mia Toretto, Tyrese Gibson as Roman, Michelle Rodriguez as Letty Ortiz, Sung Kang as Han, Charlize Theron as Cypher, Helen Mirren as Queenie, John Cena as Jacob, Nathalie Emmanuel as Ramsey, Chris Ludacris Bridges as Tej, Michael Rooker as Buddy, and Jason Statham as villain-turned-hero Deckard Shaw. New additions to that already ridiculously packed cast include Reacher star Alan Ritchson, Oscar winners Brie Larson and Rita Moreno, Portuguese film star Daniela Melchior, and beloved action hero and Aquaman himself Jason Momoa as Dante Reyes. The 10th official entry in the Fast and Furious saga will bear the creative thumbprint of a director new to the franchise. Justin Lin, who helmed 2009's Fast and Furious, 2011's Fast 5, 2013's Fast and Furious 6, and 2021's F9 The Fast Saga, left the directorial duties this time to Louis Leterrier. Experienced in the eye-popping action movie Milieu, Leterrier directed Fast 10 co-star Jason Statham in The Transporter and its sequels, as well as the 2008 MCU entry The Incredible Hulk, the 2010 remake of Clash of the Titans, and all 10 episodes of Netflix's The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. Lin didn't entirely leave the Fast and Furious family, however. He collaborated on the Fast 10 screenplay with Daniel Casey, a repairing of the team who wrote the script for F9 The Fast Saga. That film's story came from the mind of writer Alfredo Botello, and he similarly contributed the plot outline for Fast 10. After 10 mainline films, the franchise is coming to a close. But as the trailers for Fast 10 suggest, the latest outing is only the beginning of the end. Fast 10 may mark the end of Fast and Furious as we know it, but it's only the first part of the story. After previous reports that Fast 10 would conclude the series, Variety announced that the Fast Saga would end with a two-part finale, one that will reclaim the franchise's street racing roots. Though we don't yet know the title or the release date for the final installment, which will mark Vin Diesel's 10th portrayal of Dom Toretto after skipping out on Too Fast, Too Furious, we do know that the Fast and Furious team is working hard to develop a rewarding conclusion. When speaking with Variety, Diesel further explained the decision to end the franchise with the 11th feature by comparing the series to J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. There's a reason Tolkien stopped writing after a while, because it's so hard to continue mythologies. The longer this franchise, which went to outer space in F9, goes on, the harder it is to keep it grounded and interesting. He is hoping F11 finishes in first. Like many of the more recent Fast and Furious pictures, the cast and crew of Fast 10 find themselves traveling all over the world. While the Toretto clan is based in Los Angeles, they seem to find themselves breaking international laws consistently. Fast 10 is no different. This time, the street racing spy thieves find themselves filming in the United Kingdom, Italy, and Portugal. Specifically, the Fast 10 team made their way to Rome, where actor Jason Momoa was seen filming scenes for the movie. Aside from their international escapades, the Fast 10 team returned to Angelino Heights to film the majority of the LA scenes, with plenty of car chases and intense stunts making waves across their usual stomping grounds. As Variety reported, locals weren't too enthusiastic about the film's return, with some even organizing protests against the production. Ever since the first film was released in 2001, popular Fast and Furious filming locations, namely Bob's Market from the first film, have been desired points of interest for fans and reckless drivers alike, leading to dangerous incidents on local roads. Of course, not everyone was upset about the movie being filmed in their neighborhood. Homeowner Planaria Price made it clear that she didn't want filming to end, telling Variety, "It's one of the most important economic things we have in Los Angeles." Known for its clever retcons and devil-may-care attitude, the Fast saga isn't the easiest franchise to sit down and watch without the proper context. Some of the earliest films actually take place later on in the timeline, while later movies serve as prequels of sorts. Still, the very first film, The Fast and the Furious, is where everyone should start, as it introduces the world and the primary characters, namely Vin Diesel's Dom Toretto and Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor. After the original 2001 feature, Brian's adventures continue in the sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious. Although Dom doesn't reunite with his friend until 2009's Fast and Furious, which is technically the fourth film, but serves as the third chronologically. From there, Fast 5 and Fast and Furious 6 continue the plot threads established in the fourth film. The third film, released in the series The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, takes place immediately after the sixth film, leading into Furious 7, which ties every previous installment together. While Furious 7 was notable as Walker's last portrayal of Brian O'Connor before his untimely death, the series continued with the fate of the Furious. Tying in with the main franchise, Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs & Shaw takes place after the fate of the Furious, but before F9. Fast 10 will directly follow the events of F9 and begin the end of the Toretto clan's international adventures together. From the very first Fast and Furious adventure, Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor made his mark on the franchise and quickly solidified himself as a member of the Toretto family. After becoming best friends with Dom and having children with his sister Mia, the Brian character was retired following Furious 7 due to Paul Walker's real-life death. Both The Fate of the Furious and F9 offered explanations for his lack of involvement. Still, the character remains a part of the overarching Fast and Furious story.
Brian and Mia got out of the game when they became parents.
We're not them.
It seems like the Fast saga can only hold out on showing Brian again for so long, and it's becoming increasingly unlikely that the character would continue to sit out each and every new conflict that Dom, Letty, and the gang find themselves involved in. Furious 7 sent off Brian well in a respectful ending that honored Walker and the character. But with all the constant teases and references, it's becoming increasingly less believable that Brian wouldn't show up again at some point. When speaking with Total Film, Vin Diesel made it clear that the Fast saga won't end without a proper send-off for Paul Walker's breakout character. "I will give you this without spoiling anything. I couldn't imagine this saga ending without truly saying goodbye to Brian O'Connor." In almost every Fast and Furious movie, we're introduced to a new villain who has some strange hold over our favorite found family. This has ranged from international terrorists to drug lords and assassins, with some of Dom's most hated enemies becoming uneasy allies later on. With Fast 10, Jason Momoa has been added to the ever-growing list of adversaries. But like Furious 7 nemesis Deckard Shaw before him, Momoa's Dante Reyes also has a previous connection to Dom and his crew. As revealed in the Fast 10 trailers, Dante's time in the Fast saga extends back to Fast 5, when Dom, Brian, and their crew took down drug lord Hernan Reyes. While Momoa obviously didn't show up in Fast 5, clever retconning and repurposed footage have included him in the narrative. Though it was technically Luke Hobbs who executed Reyes, the makeshift Toretto family was ultimately responsible for the drug lord's defeat. Hoping to enact his revenge against his father's killers, Momoa's character is rooted within the franchise's mythology and aims to be the perfect antithesis of Dom. As director Louis Leterrier described him to Esquire, he's also the polar opposite of Dom. He's all color and flamboyance. It's a yin and yang, the Christ and the Antichrist, the anti-Dom. One of the strangest additions to the later years of the Fast saga was the government spy master Mr. Nobody. Played to perfection by Kurt Russell, Mr. Nobody first appeared in Furious 7, at the tail end of Brian O'Connor's tenure in the series. With the advent of this secret super spy, Dom and his family were ushered into a new world of international espionage, with potentially disastrous consequences. Appearing in the last 3 installments, Russell's character isn't slated to appear in Fast 10, leaving his fate ambiguous. At the beginning of F9 The Fast Saga, Mr. Nobody is credited with capturing Cypher and transporting her by plane back to the US. Unsurprisingly, this transport doesn't go as planned, and Mr. Nobody's plane goes down, leaving Cypher to join Jacob Toretto on his revenge mission against Dom. In all the chaos, the fate of Mr. Nobody is never officially addressed. Though Han eventually explains how the agent helped him fake his death, his current whereabouts remain unclear. Although Russell is not returning for Fast 10, at least as far as we know, Mr. Nobody's daughter Tess is set to appear. Played by Brie Larson, the trailer suggests that Tess will aid Dom and his team in their mission against Dante Reyes, acting in a similar capacity as her father did when working with the team. Ever since Fast 5, Dwayne Johnson has been an iconic part of the Fast and Furious franchise, though his involvement has not been without some controversy. Series star Vin Diesel had initially fought for Johnson's casting as government bounty hunter Luke Hobbs in the 5th film, but the two clashed on set. Johnson reprised his role in Fast and Furious 6 and Furious 7, but took a break during the 8th installment, instead developing his own spin-off with Jason Statham in Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs & Shaw.
When it comes to the fate of the world, it becomes my business.
Johnson also skipped to F9 The Fast Saga, though his spin-off co-star reprised his role as Shaw for an uncredited after-credits sequence. While Statham is set to return as Shaw once more for Fast 10, Hobbs will not be joining him. Since Johnson's character was so important to Fast 5, he executed Hernan Reyes after all. It will be interesting to see how Fast 10 deals with Hobbs' absence, and if Dante Reyes will even attempt to assassinate Hobbs as well. While Dwayne Johnson has repeatedly distanced himself from the Fast Saga, fans still hope to see Luke Hobbs once more before the franchise closes out. With no concrete news on a potential Hobbs & Shaw sequel, and Johnson's disinterest in returning to the main series, it's probably a safe bet to assume that Hobbs' story will come to a close off-screen. It's not ideal, but that's show business. Fast and Furious fans are also eager to see Gal Gadot's Gisele return. First appearing in the 4th installment, Fast and Furious, Gisele joined Dom's crew as a weapons expert and specialist. As a former CIA agent, she was an enormous asset to the team in both Fast 5 and Fast and Furious 6. Sadly, Gisele met her end, saving her boyfriend Han near the tail end of the 6th movie, and many fans still aren't over it.
Gisele.
Aside from some passing mentions and the deleted scene from Furious 7, Gadot has been too busy playing Wonder Woman in the DCEU to return full-time to the franchise. After Han's death in Tokyo Drift and subsequent return in F9, which followed Letty's death in Resurrection a few films prior, it's as possible as ever that Gisele's demise could have been faked also, especially given her ties to Mr. Nobody. While there hasn't been any official confirmation regarding Gisele's return to the Fast Saga, the director reported that Gal Gadot had filmed scenes for Fast 10. In response to questions regarding Gisele's possible resurrection, Han actor Sung Kang told Digital Spy that there was no reason the two couldn't be reunited by the franchise's end. Why can't she? Who doesn't want a load of Gal Gadot in their life? If she does return, odds are good that her survival will be revealed in a post-credit sequence. On March 10th, with just over 2 months until the film was set to hit theaters, Vin Diesel filmed a short scene characterized as a tag or button, or what fans might just call a post-credit scene. He may have filmed it with a co-star whose identity wasn't confirmed or revealed. Could Gal Gadot be his alleged secret scene partner? It seems that with almost every new venture into the Fast Saga, the movies get bigger and increasingly more expensive. Following the success of the 5th and 6th films, Furious 7 was given a larger budget that, after the death of Paul Walker, quickly grew to $250 million for digital recreations and reshoots. The following film, The Fate of the Furious, was granted a similar budget, while the next 2 franchise installments, Hobbs & Shaw and F9, cost $200 million each. These budgets were a far cry from the original film's budget of $38 million. As the first part of a greater franchise finale, The Wrap reported that the new film's budget is pushing $340 million, making it one of the most expensive films ever made. In comparison, Avengers Endgame had a budget of $356 million, and the budget for James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water was reported to be somewhere around $350 million. Though Fast 10 is less expensive than those two, it's still more costly than popular blockbusters, including Avengers: Infinity War or Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Exact numbers aside, the point is that Fast 10 will be huge. And while a big budget does not necessarily equal a hit, we can hope that the extra cash will be used wisely to bring the story to life. If one thing is obvious about The Fast and the Furious and its many sequels, is that every new edition gets just a bit bigger and even harder to believe. A film that was originally about illegal racing, stolen DVD players, and one cop's infiltration of a street gang quickly shifted genres and became something bigger than anyone had previously thought possible. In the sequel, Brian goes undercover to take down a drug kingpin. In the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, everything changes, focusing on American Sean Boswell in Tokyo as he falls into street racing. From the fourth film on, the franchise found its voice as an adrenaline-fueled, car-centric heist series, but it evolved into something even bigger from there too.
I don't have friends. I got family.
The franchise since has turned into a globe-trotting action series with ties to the spy genre, with each film becoming increasingly unrealistic as the series pressed onward. However, that's not what Fast X director Louis Leterrier hopes to do with the 10th installment. The director told Esquire when discussing his vision for the film, "What I wanted to do on this one, because it's very much my style, was to ground it more in reality. I wanted it to feel like Fast 1, Fast 3, and Fast 5, movies that feel grounded." Whether that actually translates to the big screen remains to be seen, but audiences will get a chance to see for themselves when Fast 10 comes roaring into theaters on May 19th.